Cale's eyelids felt heavy, as if they had been weighed down by centuries. For a long time he had drifted in darkness, neither dreaming nor awake. Then slowly a faint hum began to pierce the silence. His senses stirred, tentative and strange, as if waking from a dream that lasted forever. Cale's body ached, stiff and cold, but his mind struggled against the fog. Something was calling him to life, something insistent. When his eyes finally opened, they met a dim, dusty chamber. Shadows stretched across walls covered with strange panels, and the air was heavy with the scent of age and machinery. Cale's first thought was confusion. He could not remember where he was. The last memory he had before the darkness was volunteering for a mission meant to preserve humanity. But that memory felt distant, almost unreal. He struggled to sit upright, muscles trembling as if they had forgotten how to move. Dust rose in the faint air currents with each motion, shimmering in the faint glow of light still working after millennia. Cale blinked, trying to focus, trying to make sense of what he saw. His heart beat faster. The chamber, the machines, the quiet hum, it all suggested a world beyond understanding. Cale's first step outside the chamber was hesitant. The door opened with a groan that echoed across the hollowed halls. He paused, listening. Silence. A silence that was deeper than anything he had ever known. A silence that seemed to swallow sound itself. The halls were cracked, walls crumbled in places, and strange plants had begun creeping through openings. Nature had begun reclaiming the structures. The city beyond the chamber stretched out like a ghost of its former self. Towering buildings, once gleaming with glass and metal, were now fractured shells. Streets were cracked, overtaken by soil, weeds, and the skeletal remains of vehicles frozen in time. Cale's mind struggled to comprehend the scale of the ruin. He remembered a world bustling with people, with voices, with motion, but all of that had vanished. Cale began walking. Each step felt heavy, deliberate. He needed to understand. He needed to see what had happened. His fingers brushed against the walls of buildings, over cold metal and shattered stone. Everywhere he looked, civilization's echoes were evident. Empty vehicles, broken machines, and buildings with gaping holes. The signs of a world that had thrived and then vanished. Despite the desolation, Cale could sense life. Not human life, but some other kind of survival. Birds, larger than he remembered, flew across the cracked skyline. Small animals moved through the streets and abandoned parks. Some of them were ordinary, like rabbits and foxes. Others were strange, mutated by time, environment, or unknown forces. Cale could not tell whether to fear or admire them. This world had changed in ways he had never imagined. Cale's steps led him to a building that looked like it had been a research center. He entered carefully, wary of collapsing floors or hidden dangers. Inside, machines hummed faintly. Some appeared operational, though their purpose was unclear. Panels lit up as he approached, lines of unfamiliar code running across screens. Cale felt a shiver run through him. These machines were not just remnants. They seemed alive, as if the city itself had become conscious, waiting for someone to awaken it. He moved from room to room, examining everything. Desks were covered in dust, papers decayed to nothing, but some digital storage devices still functioned. Cale realized that knowledge had been preserved, pieces of human history, science, and culture frozen in time, waiting for him to uncover. The thought gave him a spark of hope in the vast emptiness. Humanity was gone, but perhaps its mind, its spirit, was not entirely lost. Cale paused near a window, looking out over the city. The sky was a dull gray, tinged with faint red and orange hues. Clouds swirled slowly, carrying the smell of ash and earth. He could see distant mountains, their peaks covered with strange vegetation. The world had changed, but it was still beautiful in a harsh, melancholic way. He wondered what had caused this transformation. Was it war, nature, or something beyond his understanding? A sudden sound broke the silence, a metallic clang from somewhere below. Cale's heart jumped. He instinctively crouched and looked around, but saw nothing. The sound came again, echoing across the empty street. He decided to follow it cautiously. Perhaps there was someone or something else alive. Or maybe it was just the city itself moving, settling after centuries of neglect. As Cale explored, he noticed markings on walls. Some were familiar, ancient scripts from human languages. Others were entirely alien, composed of symbols and shapes he had never seen. He reached out to touch one, and a faint glow pulsed from the wall. It startled him. These were not just signs. They were warnings or messages, preserved for someone to understand. Kale realized that the city was trying to communicate with him, guiding him toward something important. Hours passed as Kale wandered. The sun, a faint glow behind the thick clouds, cast long shadows. He found shelters filled with supplies, dormant machines, tools, and containers with preserved food and water. Though some had long since spoiled, enough remained to sustain him. The city, in its strange way, seemed prepared for his awakening. It was as if it had known someone would return. Kale felt a mix of fear and awe. Humanity was gone. Civilization was nothing but dust, yet he was alive. He could see, touch, and understand. There was a purpose to his awakening, though he did not yet know what it was. The ruins around him were silent witnesses to a story he had missed, a story that had unfolded over 18,000 years. Night fell, bringing a chill that crept through broken windows and open doors. Kale found a small room in one of the half-collapsed buildings and made a makeshift resting place. He sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, and closed his eyes. Memories of the past mingled with visions of the present. He remembered faces, voices, laughter, and love, everything humanity had been. Yet now all that remained were fragments, waiting for someone to piece them together. Before sleep overtook him, Kale spoke aloud, almost as a promise to himself. "I will understand. I will find out what happened. And maybe I can fix it." His voice echoed faintly in the empty hall, swallowed quickly by silence. It was a small act, but it gave him strength. Even if he was alone, even if humanity had vanished, he was still human. And humanity's spark could not be extinguished. As he drifted into a light, uneasy sleep, Kale could not shake the feeling that he was being watched, not by humans, but by the machines, the city, or something else entirely. There was a presence, subtle and persistent, guiding him. Tomorrow he would rise and explore further. He would uncover the secrets of this world. And perhaps, just perhaps, he could awaken life from the dust. The city was silent yet alive. And so was Kyle. The morning light filtered through the broken walls, casting a soft, dusty glow over the city. Kale woke with a start, his body stiff but his mind sharp. The silence of the ruins pressed against him. Yet he felt a strange sense of purpose. Yesterday had been only the beginning. Today he would go further. He would uncover the secrets of this abandoned world. Kale stepped outside and took a deep breath. The air was thick but alive with sense of earth decay and something unfamiliar, something almost metallic. He wandered through streets littered with debris. Cars rusted into unrecognizable shapes, buildings teetered like skeletons, and vines crawled over concrete as if claiming it for nature. Still, the city felt less like a tomb now and more like a living museum, preserving the story of humanity and its last moments. He moved toward a taller building that had survived the centuries better than most. Its glass facade was shattered, but enough remained for him to see inside. Using a combination of agility and caution, he climbed over rubble to reach the main floor. Inside, computers and machinery hummed faintly. Some panels glowed with faint energy. Others lay dark, lifeless. Kale approached one that seemed functional, touching the screen. Symbols appeared, flickering like stars in the void. Kyle had always been trained to understand machines, to read data. Yet these systems were different, older and more advanced at the same time. He studied the lines of code, recognizing fragments of human programming mixed with designs that were clearly not human. The realization hit him. Humanity had tried to merge its knowledge with something beyond its understanding. Perhaps this combination had caused the fall, or perhaps it had been their final hope. As he explored further, Kyle discovered signs of life, or what had once been life. The walls of the building were lined with preserved chambers, some containing plants in suspended growth, others with creatures Kale had never seen. Some looked like they had been engineered, a blend of species and traits designed to survive in this changed world. He felt a mix of wonder and unease. This was no ordinary ruin. It was a testament to human ambition and imagination. Hours passed as Kyle documented everything. He spoke aloud to himself, naming plants, animals, and machines as he went. The sound of his own voice reminded him he was alive, that he was human, and that the world, despite its emptiness, still held value. Somewhere in the distance, a faint movement caught his eye. A creature larger than any deer he had known stepped gracefully among the rubble. Its eyes shone with intelligence, and it did not flee. Kale froze, unsure if it was friend or foe. The creature approached, slow and deliberate. Kyle held his ground, extending a hand. To his surprise, it stopped a few feet away and regarded him calmly. There was a connection, an understanding that passed between them without words. Kyle realized that life had adapted, had learned to survive in ways humanity had never imagined. If humans could rise again, perhaps they could learn from this world rather than merely dominate it. Kyle continued exploring, moving toward the remnants of a central plaza. Here the destruction was most visible. Statues were toppled, fountains dry, and the ground littered with fragments of what had once been human life. Yet amid the ruin, life persisted. Small plants sprouted between cracks, insects buzzed, and birds nested in the broken remains of buildings. The scene filled Kale with both sorrow and hope. Humanity had failed, but the world itself endured. As he wandered the plaza, a faint signal caught his attention. A rhythmic pulse of energy, barely noticeable, came from a distant tower. Kale felt a surge of curiosity. Someone or something was signaling. It could be another human, though unlikely, or perhaps a machine still operational, waiting to guide him. Without hesitation, Kale set off toward the source, moving through streets and debris with cautious determination. The journey was not easy. Parts of the city had become wild, nature reclaiming roads and structures. He climbed over fallen beams, ducked under twisted metal, and leapt across gaps where streets had collapsed. Yet the signal persisted, a gentle heartbeat in the vast emptiness. Kale's determination grew. He could not ignore it. Whoever had sent this signal had left it for a reason, and Kale intended to discover that reason. Finally, Kale reached the tower. Its base was partially buried under rubble, but the signal grew stronger as he approached. Entering carefully, he found a spiral staircase leading upward. The tower seemed untouched by human hands for millennia, yet the signal pulsed steadily, alive and insistent. Climbing the stairs, Kale's mind raced with questions. What had survived? Who or what was waiting for him? At the top, he discovered a chamber filled with machines unlike any he had seen before. Lights pulsed softly, screens displayed data in strange languages, and holographic images flickered in midair. Kale stepped closer, and the images coalesced into a scene he could understand. Humans, scientists, and explorers, working alongside alien forms, sharing knowledge. The hologram shifted, showing a timeline of events, wars, experiments, and the gradual decline of civilization. Kyle realized that humanity had not simply vanished. They had reached out, connected with beings beyond Earth, and attempted to merge their knowledge with alien technology. Some humans had chosen to preserve themselves in stasis, hoping one day to awaken. Others had allowed their consciousness to merge with machines, leaving behind only traces of themselves. The collapse had been tragic, yes, but not the absolute end. Life had adapted, and knowledge had survived. A soft vibration from one of the machines caught Kale's attention. A panel slid open, revealing a small compartment containing preserved data disks. Kale carefully picked them up. Understanding they were more than storage, they were the legacy of humanity. He could learn from them, perhaps even rebuild. The thought filled him with cautious optimism. Maybe he was not alone after all. Maybe he was meant to continue what humanity had started. Kale spent hours studying the chamber, interacting with the machines, and trying to decipher the alien symbols. Slowly, patterns emerged. The symbols were not random. They were instructions, warnings, and guidance left for someone who could understand both human and alien logic. Kale realized that this place was a sanctuary, a seed planted to ensure life and knowledge could rise again. As the day turned to evening, Kale decided to rest. He had explored much, learned more than he could process, and felt the weight of the centuries pressing on him. Yet, despite the exhaustion, he felt a spark of hope. He was alive, the world was not dead, and he had a purpose. Humanity's story had not ended. It had only paused. And Kale would be its witness and perhaps its hero. Before settling in, he spoke aloud, more to anchor himself than to communicate. "You waited for me, and I am here. I will understand. I will survive. I will honor what came before." His voice echoed across the empty city, swallowed quickly by the night, but it mattered. The words were a promise, and promises were powerful. Kale slept lightly that night, dreams filled with flickers of the past and visions of what might come. He saw humans walking alongside strange creatures, cities alive with both machine and nature, and stars that seemed closer, brighter, full of possibility. He awoke with determination. The ruins were not the end, they were a beginning, and Kyle, awakened after 18,000 years, would be the first to step into that new world. The sun rose again, casting pale light over the broken city. Kyle stood at the edge of a plaza, looking out over the streets below. Machines hummed faintly, birds called from the rooftops, and small animals scuttled through the rubble. The world was quiet, but it was alive, and so was he. Kyle knew that tomorrow he would venture further, uncovering more secrets and perhaps even signs of life left by those who had survived. Each step would bring understanding, each discovery would bring hope. Civilization had been reduced to dust, yes, but from that dust something new could grow. And Kale was ready to nurture it. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of metal and earth. Kale stood at the top of the tower, looking down at the city below. From this height, the ruined streets seemed both familiar and strange. Buildings that had once been symbols of human achievement were now little more than skeletal frames, and yet life had begun to creep back. Birds circled in the sky, their calls echoing across the empty avenues. Small animals moved cautiously through cracks in the pavement, and even some strange new creatures scuttled among the ruins. Kyle's focus, however, was the faint signal he had detected yesterday. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat, coming from a direction to the northeast. He carefully descended the tower, stepping over rubble and avoiding unstable surfaces. The city seemed quieter than before, almost as if it were holding its breath, waiting for him to make a move. Kale's curiosity burned inside him. Whoever or whatever had sent this signal had survived the centuries in some form, and Kale was determined to find it. As he moved through the streets, Kale noticed signs that the world had changed more than he had imagined. Plants with leaves shaped like blades of glass glimmered in the sunlight. Strange insects buzzed overhead, their wings producing soft harmonic tones. Some animals were intelligent in ways he did not fully understand. They paused to observe him, and their eyes seemed aware, curious, even cautious. Kale felt a strange respect for these creatures. They were the heirs of a world humanity had abandoned. The streets grew rougher, and nature had begun to reclaim much of what humans had built. Trees burst through crumbling buildings, roots twisting over broken walls. Fences and roads were fractured, and in some places rivers had carved new paths through concrete and asphalt. Kale had to climb, jump, and carefully navigate to continue. He felt alive in a way he had never known. Survival had always been about skill and strength, but now it was also about observation, learning, and patience. After hours of travel, Kale finally reached the source of the signal. It came from a structure that had once been a communications hub. The building was partially buried under debris, but faint lights pulsed inside, evidence that the system was still operational. Kale stepped carefully inside, and his eyes widened. The room was filled with advanced machines he had never seen before. Screens displayed strange symbols that shifted and changed, almost alive. Some machines moved as if aware of his presence, adjusting and responding to his every step. Kyle approached the largest console in the center of the room. It pulsed with energy, sending out the signal he had been following. He reached out to touch it, and instantly a holographic projection appeared. Figures of humans and alien beings flickered in midair, interacting, working together, creating and learning. Kyle watched in awe. This was history preserved, not just in text or images, but in living memory. He saw humans communicating with beings whose forms he could barely comprehend. Their technology was beyond anything he had imagined, blending human innovation with alien design. As Kyle studied the projections, he realized the truth. Humanity had not simply vanished. They had faced crises, wars, environmental collapse, and experiments with alien technology, but some had chosen to preserve themselves and their knowledge. Others had merged their consciousness with machines, leaving fragments of themselves behind. The signal he had followed was a remnant of that effort, a call sent through time waiting for someone who could awaken it, and now Kale was that someone. The console projected a map of the surrounding region, highlighting locations where other signals could be found. Kale recognized several points of interest: old research facilities, biolabs, and storage bunkers. Each marker represented a potential piece of humanity's survival, a fragment of knowledge waiting to be uncovered. Kale felt a surge of determination. He would not leave this place as he had found it. He would seek out these locations and unlock their secrets. Humanity had endured in hidden ways, and he would carry that legacy forward. Kale activated a small portable device to record the data. He spoke aloud, his voice breaking the silence of the abandoned building. I don't know what happened here. I don't know who remains or if anyone remains at all. But I will find out. I will understand. I will honor what came before. His words echoed in the chamber, swallowed quickly by the hum of machines, but they gave him strength. Kale felt more alive than ever, aware of his purpose in this strange, quiet world. As he prepared to leave, Kale noticed movement outside, a figure, humanoid, moving cautiously between broken buildings. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be another human? Or was it one of the intelligent creatures that now roamed the city? Kale crouched behind debris, observing. The figure paused, sensing him, and their eyes met. Kale's breath caught. This was not human, but it was not hostile. Its form was slender, almost ethereal, with features that seemed both familiar and alien. Its eyes glowed softly in the dim light, intelligent and aware. Kale stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands visible. I'm not here to hurt you, he said, voice calm but firm. The figure tilted its head, studying him. Then, in a gesture Kale did not fully understand, it extended a hand. He hesitated, then took it. The moment he did, a spark of recognition passed between them, as if the being understood his purpose and intentions. Kale realized that life had survived in ways he had not imagined. It had adapted, evolved, and waited for someone like him to awaken it. The being led Kale through hidden passages, showing him places he would never have found alone. They passed abandoned parks now filled with hybrid plants, small ponds where aquatic creatures swam freely, and buildings where machines continued their work without human guidance. Kale realized that this world had its own intelligence shaped by centuries of adaptation. It was not simply a world of ruins, it was a world alive, and he was now a part of it. After hours of exploration, Kyle and the being reached a chamber filled with dormant machines. Kale recognized some of the devices from the tower, but others were completely new. The being guided him to one console where a soft light pulsed, waiting. Kale touched it, and instantly streams of data flowed into his mind. Images of humans, machines, and alien beings danced before his eyes. He saw experiments, discoveries, and attempts to preserve life. The knowledge was overwhelming, but Kale absorbed it, determined to learn and remember. He realized that the signal he had followed was more than a beacon. It was an invitation. The humans who had designed it had left it for someone capable of understanding, someone strong enough to continue their work. Kale felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders, heavy but necessary. The world had endured 18,000 years without him, but now it awaited his guidance. He would not fail. Night fell, and Kale prepared a small shelter inside the chamber. He could hear the soft hum of machines, the distant calls of creatures outside, and the faint whisper of the wind through broken buildings. The world was quiet but not lifeless. It was a world of potential, waiting for someone to awaken it fully. Kale closed his eyes, dreams filled with visions of past and future, humans and alien beings working together, cities alive with energy, and life flourishing against impossible odds. Before sleep overtook him, Kale spoke softly to the being beside him, who had remained near the chamber's entrance. We will learn, he said. We will survive. And one day, life will rise from this dust stronger than before. The being tilted its head almost as if it understood every word. Kale felt hope stirring inside him, a spark that had not existed in millennia. He was not alone. As Kale drifted into sleep, he reflected on the journey so far. He had awakened to a world of ruins, yet he had discovered that life had persisted in hidden, unexpected ways. The signal had led him to the first signs of intelligence beyond himself, and now he had a guide, a companion, and a purpose. Humanity's story was far from over. Kale understood that the next steps would be harder, filled with unknown challenges and discoveries, but he was ready. He was alive, and life awaited his touch. The dawn would come again, and Kale would continue his journey. The world, once silent, was beginning to stir. Machines hummed, animals moved, and Kale's resolve burned brighter than ever. Civilization had crumbled, but hope endured, and Kale, awakened after 18,000 years, would lead the first steps toward a new beginning. Kale awoke to the soft glow of dawn filtering through cracks in the ruined building. The city below was quiet, though he could sense movement. Small animals, birds, and machines performing their tasks without human guidance. The being that had guided him yesterday remained near the chamber, a silent companion whose presence brought both comfort and curiosity. Cale rose and stretched, feeling stronger with each passing day. His body had adjusted to the long absence, and his mind burned with purpose. Today, he decided, he would leave the tower and explore beyond the city limits. The signal that had guided him here hinted at other places, other secrets left for him to uncover. He gathered supplies, water, preserved rations from old storage units, and a small toolkit. The machines around him hummed faintly, almost as if acknowledging his preparation. Cale understood that the world had changed, and that he needed to adapt as much as survive. Stepping outside, Cale took a moment to observe his surroundings. The city was vast, but the outskirts were slowly being reclaimed by nature. Trees and shrubs grew through cracked streets, rivers carved new paths through rubble, and strange plants glimmered under the sun. Cale marveled at the resilience of life. Humanity's absence had given the world a chance to evolve in ways he had never imagined. He took careful steps, moving toward the northeast, where the signal suggested more remnants of civilization and knowledge might be found. As he traveled, Cale noticed subtle signs of human effort that had endured the centuries. Small machines, half buried in soil, continued to function. Some were harvesting water, others monitoring environmental conditions. Cale realized that humanity had attempted to leave a legacy, even in the face of inevitable collapse. The thought filled him with awe. People had sacrificed themselves and their resources to preserve something greater than their own lives: knowledge, technology, and hope. By midday, Cale reached the outskirts of what had once been a sprawling research facility. The main building was partially collapsed, vines crawling over broken windows, but faint lights pulsed inside. He approached carefully, aware that the structure might be unstable. The being that accompanied him moved ahead, guiding him through hidden paths and avoiding dangerous areas. Cale could not fully understand its form, but he trusted its judgment. Its intelligence was evident, its awareness precise, and its loyalty unmistakable. Inside the facility, Cale discovered rows of dormant machines, some of which were unlike anything he had encountered. They were large, complex, and filled with soft glows that suggested consciousness. Cale realized that these machines were more than tools. They were keepers of knowledge, designed to protect information and perhaps even life itself. He began to explore methodically, recording everything he could, touching consoles and deciphering symbols that blended human and alien design. Hours passed and Cale uncovered fragments of humanity's final days. Holographic projections flickered to life, showing humans working alongside alien beings. They were conducting experiments, building structures, and merging technology in ways Cale struggled to comprehend. The projections depicted war, environmental disasters, and the slow decline of civilization. Yet amid the chaos there were glimpses of hope. Projects designed to preserve life, knowledge, and culture. Humanity had not given up entirely, even as the world crumbled. Cale felt a pang of sadness as he realized how much had been lost. Cities, families, and cultures were gone, reduced to ruins. But he also felt a spark of determination. The remnants he had discovered were not just relics, they were tools, guides, and legacies left for someone like him. Cale understood that he had a role to play, that his awakening was not random. The world had waited for a human capable of understanding and acting, and now it was his responsibility to continue what had begun long ago. Moving deeper into the facility, Cale found chambers filled with preserved human embryos and hybrid life forms. Some were stored in stasis, carefully maintained by automated systems that had endured centuries of neglect. Others were experimental, designed to adapt to harsh conditions or merge human and alien traits. Cale realized that humanity had tried to ensure its survival in many ways. Even if most of those plans had failed, the sight filled him with a mix of wonder, fear, and hope. He understood that these beings represented a chance for rebirth, a second beginning for life that had almost vanished. Cale paused to examine a large console in the center of the facility. Its lights pulsed rhythmically, and the symbols on its surface shifted as if alive. When he touched it, streams of data flowed into his mind. He saw images of humans communicating with alien beings, sharing knowledge, and creating solutions to problems that had once seemed insurmountable. He saw their experiments with machines, their attempts to preserve ecosystems, and their efforts to safeguard life itself. Kyle realized that this facility had been a hub of preservation, a seed planted to ensure that knowledge and life could endure beyond the collapse. As he continued exploring, Kyle discovered more signals, smaller and fainter than the one that had led him here. They were scattered across the city and surrounding lands, each representing a potential piece of humanity's survival. Kyle felt a surge of determination. He would follow them all, uncover every secret, and learn everything that could be saved. Humanity had endured in hidden ways, and now it was his turn to carry that legacy forward. Late in the day, Kale encountered another sign of life, this one more tangible. In a half-collapsed courtyard, he saw movement among the rubble. Creatures, both familiar and strange, were scavenging for food. Some were small, rodent-like animals, while others were larger and more intelligent, observing him with cautious curiosity. Kyle approached slowly, showing no threat. To his surprise, one of the larger creatures stepped forward as if recognizing him. Its eyes were bright and alert, and it seemed to understand him in a way that defied explanation. The creature led him through hidden paths, showing him areas of the facility that had been sealed off or overlooked. Kale realized that these beings had adapted to the world in ways humans could not, learning to survive, guide, and even protect the remnants of civilization. He understood that life had continued in secret, evolving without human interference. Kale felt a sense of awe. The world was no longer just ruins, it was alive, and he had been chosen to witness and guide its next steps. Night fell, and Kale set up a temporary shelter within the facility. The machines hummed softly, the creatures moved quietly outside, and the world seemed to breathe around him. Kale reflected on what he had learned. Humanity's collapse had been tragic, yes, but it had not been absolute. Knowledge, life, and hope had survived in hidden ways. Kale understood that he was not merely exploring ruins, he was awakening a world. Before sleep overtook him, Kale spoke aloud, his voice calm and steady. Humanity waited, life waited, and now I am here. I will understand, I will protect, and I will rebuild. His words echoed through the empty corridors, carried softly by the hum of machines and the rustle of creatures outside. It was a small act, but it solidified his resolve. Kyle was alive, and the world depended on him, not just to survive, but to guide life forward. As he drifted into a light sleep, Kyle dreamed of the past and the future. He saw humans and alien, beings working together, cities alive with energy, and life flourishing in impossible ways. He saw knowledge preserved across centuries, waiting for someone capable of understanding it. And he saw himself, walking among the ruins and the living world, a bridge between what had been and what could be. When he awoke, Kale felt renewed determination. The world was vast, full of ruins and secrets, but also alive with potential. He would continue his journey, following signals, uncovering knowledge, and awakening life wherever it lay hidden. Humanity's story had not ended. It had only paused. And Kale, awakened after 18,000 years, would write its next chapter. Kyle awoke to a pale light that filtered through the ruins. The city stretched below him, quiet yet alive with the subtle rhythm of nature and machines. The creatures that had guided him through hidden paths yesterday waited nearby, calm and alert. Kale felt a surge of determination. Today he would uncover the final truths, why humanity had fallen, what had survived, and what role he was meant to play in this world reborn. He began by revisiting the largest facility he had explored, the one pulsing with ancient energy and hidden knowledge. Machines hummed softly as he approached, responding to his presence with lights and faint vibrations. Kale had learned to read these signals. They were not random, but communication. The city, the machines, and even the creatures were all part of a system designed to preserve life and knowledge. And now he was its master, its caretaker, and its student. Kale moved to the central console, the one that had revealed fragments of humanity's history. Touching it, he activated the holographic projections once more. Scenes of the past unfolded. Humans working alongside alien beings, sharing knowledge, creating technologies that could alter life itself. Kale watched as experiments succeeded and failed, as cities rose and fell, as civilizations struggled to survive environmental collapse and interstellar conflicts. He saw the hope and despair of his ancestors, their brilliance, their mistakes, and their sacrifices. One projection caught his attention more than the others. It showed a massive experiment, combining human and alien technology, designed to preserve consciousness across centuries. Humans had stored themselves in stasis. Machines had taken over, and alien intelligence had integrated into the system. Kale realized the truth. Humanity had not truly disappeared. It had survived in fragments hidden in machines, preserved in stasis chambers, and even in hybrid life forms adapted to the changed world. The collapse had been catastrophic, yes, but not absolute. Life had endured, waiting for someone to awaken it fully. The realization filled Kale with awe and responsibility. He understood that his awakening was no accident. He was chosen, not just to explore, but to rebuild. Humanity's knowledge, combined with alien technology and the resilience of evolved life, could form the foundation of a new civilization. Kale felt the weight of centuries pressing on his shoulders, but also a fire of hope that burned brighter than ever. He would honor the past, preserve the present, and guide the future. Kale spent hours interacting with the machines, learning their functions, and understanding their purpose. They were not merely tools. They were living archives programmed to maintain ecosystems, preserve knowledge, and even monitor the evolution of life. Some machines guided hybrid creatures, helping them survive in ways humans could not. Others contained records of planets, species, and experiments, waiting for someone capable of understanding and using them. Kyle realized that he was not alone in this task. Life in all its forms would work with him. After studying the machines, Kale ventured deeper into the facility, discovering chambers that had been sealed for centuries. Inside, he found stasis pods containing humans in suspended animation. Their faces were peaceful, unaware of the destruction outside. Kale approached carefully, feeling the weight of history. These people had trusted the system, trusting that one day someone would awaken them. Now he was that someone. He activated the pods gently, ensuring the life support systems were stable. Slowly, humans began to awaken, their eyes opening to a world they could not have imagined. The awakening was quiet, but profound. Humans stretched, confused at first, then gradually understood where they were. Kale explained, as best as he could, the events of the last 18,000 years. Some were overwhelmed, some were in disbelief, but all felt the weight of survival and responsibility. Kale realized that the new world would need guidance, and he was ready to provide it. The humans were not alone. They had each other, the machines, and Kale to lead them. As the days passed, Kale worked tirelessly to integrate knowledge from the stasis pods, the machines, and the hybrid creatures. Together, they rebuilt parts of the city, restored essential systems, and nurtured the natural world that had reclaimed the ruins. Plants were cultivated, water systems repaired, and shelters made safe. Life began to flourish once more, blending technology with the resilience of nature. The city, once a tomb of the past, slowly became a living symbol of renewal. Kyle discovered that some humans had memories of advanced technology and interstellar knowledge. With the machine's guidance, they began teaching each other, sharing ideas and rediscovering the skills that had been lost. The hybrid creatures adapted to the humans' presence, forming bonds and learning to cooperate. Kale felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This was more than survival, it was collaboration, the merging of human brilliance with alien adaptation and the wisdom of the natural world. One day, as Kale explored the outskirts of the city, he noticed something extraordinary. From the distance, a faint light pulsed in the sky. It was not the sun or the stars, but a signal, similar to the one that had led him to the tower. Kale realized that other remnants of humanity, or perhaps other civilizations, might still exist beyond this world. The universe was vast, and while this city and its surroundings had become a cradle of life, the possibility of discovering more, connecting with others, and sharing knowledge excited him. Kale returned to the central facility, bringing the humans and creatures with him. Together they studied the signal, deciphering its origin and purpose. The machines provided data, while the humans applied reasoning and creativity. Kyle realized that this was only the beginning. The world had endured millennia, but the galaxy held countless possibilities. Humanity's knowledge, combined with the resilience of life on this planet, could now reach farther than ever before. Night fell, and Kale stood atop the tower once more. The city below glowed softly with lights powered by ancient technology and newly repaired systems. Humans moved through the streets, rebuilding homes and laboratories. Creatures roamed freely, cooperating with humans and machines. The air was alive with energy, hope, and life. Kyle breathed deeply, feeling the weight of centuries behind him and the promise of centuries to come. Civilization was no longer dust, it was rising again, stronger, wiser, and more united. Kale spoke aloud to the world around him, his voice carrying across the empty streets and into the sky. We have endured. We have learned. We have survived. And now we will rise, not as remnants of the past, but as a new beginning. Together, we will honor what came before and create what comes next. His words echoed in the ruins, but this time they were not swallowed by silence. They were answered by life, by machines, by humans and creatures alike. The world listened and it responded. As Kale descended to the city, he reflected on everything he had learned. Humanity's fall had been tragic, yet it had left behind seeds of hope. Life had adapted, knowledge had survived, and he had been chosen to awaken it. The ruins, the machines, the stasis chambers, and the hybrid creatures were not reminders of failure. They were instruments of rebirth. Kale understood that civilization would rise again, guided by the lessons of the past and the wisdom of survival. In the following days, Kale and the humans worked tirelessly. They restored communications, shared knowledge, and rebuilt essential infrastructure. Machines that had lain dormant now hummed with purpose, maintaining ecosystems and assisting life. Hybrid creatures became allies and teachers, demonstrating skills that humans could not replicate alone. Together, they formed a community, blending technology, nature, and intelligence into a new civilization. Kale realized that this was the true meaning of survival, not simply existing but growing, learning, and collaborating. Weeks passed and the city transformed. Ruins became laboratories, broken streets became gardens, and the hum of machines blended with the sounds of life. Kale watched as humans and creatures cooperated, as knowledge spread, and as hope became tangible. The city was no longer a monument to what had been lost. It was a testament to what could be achieved when life endured, learned, and adapted. Kale knew that challenges lay ahead. The universe was vast, and the lessons of survival had only just begun. But for the first time in 18,000 years, he felt confident that life, knowledge, and civilization could thrive once more. Humanity was no longer dust. It had awakened, stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace a future shaped by both past lessons and new possibilities. Standing at the edge of a restored plaza, Kale looked out over the city. Lights glimmered, creatures moved gracefully, and humans worked with determination and curiosity. The world once silent had come alive again. Kale smiled, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. He had awakened after millennia, discovered the truth, and guided life toward a new beginning. Civilization was no longer lost. It had risen from the dust, and Kale knew it would endure, evolve, and thrive for generations to come. The sun set slowly, painting the sky in hues of red and gold. Kale stood among the people and creatures he had awakened and guided. Together they faced the future, not as remnants of the past, but as pioneers of a new civilization. Humanity's story was far from over. It had only just begun, and Kyle, awakened after 18,000 years, was its first witness, and its greatest hope.